Robert Harrison stood in the grand foyer of his Manhattan penthouse, watching yet another nanny gather her belongings. That made 7 in 6 months. His daughter Emma sat on the curved staircase, her blonde hair falling forward to hide. Her face, a posture he'd grown to recognize as defeat. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison," the departing nanny said, not quite meeting his eyes. "I just don't think I'm the right fit." After the door closed, Robert loosened his tie and sat beside his 10-year-old daughter. At 42, he'd built a financial empire, but lately he felt he was failing at the only thing that truly mattered. "It's okay, Dad," Emma whispered. "I know I'm difficult." Those words broke his heart more than any business loss ever could. The truth was, Emma had been struggling since her mother passed 2 years ago. She'd become withdrawn, anxious, constantly scratching at her scalp until red marks appeared. The private school had called multiple times. Other children avoided her. Teachers spoke in hushed, concerned tones. Robert had taken her to the finest doctors in New York. They'd prescribed creams, medications, counseling sessions. Nothing seemed to help. His bright, joyful daughter had retreated into a shell of sadness, and he didn't know how to reach her. That evening, Robert sat in his study, scrolling through another agency's list of candidates. Most would take one look at Emma's file, the notes from previous nannies, the school reports, and politely decline. Then he saw a different kind of resume. Diane Mitchell, age 38, had been a pediatric nurse before transitioning to private child care. Her references spoke of patience, warmth, and an unusual gift for connecting with struggling children. During their phone interview, Diane asked questions that surprised him. Not about salary or schedule, but about Emma's favorite foods, what made her laugh, what she missed most about her mother. "Mr. Harrison," Diane said gently, "sometimes children carry burdens we can't see. They need someone willing to look closer." Something in her voice, kindness without pity, made Robert feel hopeful for the first time in months. Diane arrived on a crisp October morning. She was tall and graceful, wearing a simple orange sweater that somehow made the formal penthouse feel warmer. When Emma peeked around the corner, Diane didn't rush forward or speak in that overly cheerful voice adults often used with troubled children. Instead, she simply smiled and said, "Hello, Emma, I'm Diane. I hear you like reading." "So do I. Maybe we could visit a bookstore sometime." Emma gave the smallest nod before retreating to her room. "That's actually progress," Robert said with a sad smile. The first week, Diane simply observed. She noticed how Emma isolated herself, how she flinched when other children came near at the park, how her hand constantly moved to her scalp. But Diane never scolded or drew attention to these behaviors. Instead, she read aloud while Emma drew. She prepared Emma's favorite grilled cheese sandwiches, cut diagonally just so. She spoke in a calm, unhurried voice that seemed to ease the tension in the apartment. On the 8th day, while braiding Emma's hair before school, Diane noticed something. She paused, her fingers gentle, then continued without comment. But that evening, she asked Robert if they could talk privately. "Mr. Harrison, when was the last time someone thoroughly examined Emma's scalp?" Robert frowned. "The dermatologist saw her 3 months ago, said it was stress-related scratching. May I suggest a second opinion?" Diane's voice was carefully neutral. "I'd like Dr. Patricia Chen to take a look. She's a specialist I worked with at Children's Hospital." The next afternoon, Dr. Chen arrived at the penthouse. She was a kind woman in her 50s, who spent nearly an hour examining Emma's scalp under a special light, asking gentle questions, taking samples with patient care. When she finished, she asked to speak with Robert and Diane together. "Mr. Harrison, your daughter has a severe case of pediculosis, capitis, head lice, that's been untreated for quite some time." Dr. Chen's voice was professional but compassionate. "The infestation is significant. The constant itching, the social isolation, the anxiety. These are all symptoms. Emma has been suffering, likely too embarrassed to tell anyone." Robert felt the room tilt. "Head lice? But we've seen so many doctors. It's often missed if not specifically looked for," Dr. Chen explained. "And there's a stigma attached that makes children, especially at Emma's age, deeply ashamed. They'd rather suffer in silence than risk being called dirty or different." Diane spoke softly. "Emma, sweetheart, this isn't your fault. This has nothing to do with being clean. It happens to thousands of children. but now we can help you." For the first time in months, Emma began to cry. Not the silent tears Robert had seen before, but deep releasing sobs. "The kids at school said I was gross. I heard them. I tried to fix it myself, but nothing worked. I thought something was wrong with me." Robert pulled his daughter close, his own eyes burning. "Oh, Emma, I'm so sorry. I should have." "You couldn't have known," Diane said gently. "But now we can make this right." The treatment took time and patience. Dr. Chen provided medical-grade shampoos and explained the thorough process needed. Diane transformed it from a shameful ordeal into something almost meditative. She set up in Emma's bathroom with soft music playing, warm towels, and a gentle touch that made the hours of careful combing bearable. She told stories of her own childhood, of times she'd felt different or afraid, of how kindness had helped her through. "My grandmother used to say that the hardest struggles teach us the most important lessons," Diane said while working through another section of hair. "Not because suffering is good, but because overcoming it shows us our own strength." Emma listened, occasionally asking questions, slowly beginning to trust again. Robert often stood in the doorway, watching this woman who'd only been with them for weeks show more genuine care than all the expensive specialists combined. Diane had seen what others missed, not because she had better credentials, but because she had taken the time to truly look. The physical healing took 3 weeks of diligent treatment, but the emotional healing took longer. Diane helped Emma practice what to say if anyone asked about her absence from school. She role-played scenarios, building Emma's confidence. "You don't owe anyone an explanation," Diane said. "But if you want to share, you can simply say you had a medical condition that's now treated. Anyone worth being friends with will understand." When Emma finally returned to school, Diane sent her with a new haircut, not drastically different, but fresh, healthy, styled with care. Emma stood straighter. Her hand no longer reached for her scalp. That first day, Robert waited anxiously for pickup time. When Emma emerged, she was walking with another girl, both of them laughing about something. "Dad, this is Sophie," Emma said. "She invited me to her birthday party next week." Robert had to clear his throat. "That sounds wonderful." Over the following months, Robert watched his daughter return to life. The anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but it diminished. Emma started joining activities again. Her grades improved. Most importantly, her smile came back. The genuine one he'd feared was lost forever. One evening, Robert found Diane in the kitchen, preparing dinner while humming softly. He realized this woman had become family in the way that mattered most. "Diane, I don't know how to thank you properly," he began. She turned, her expression warm. "Mr. Harrison, Emma didn't need fixing. She needed someone to see her completely, to look beyond the surface symptoms to the real cause. That's true for all of us, I think. You saw what 7 nannies and a dozen doctors missed." "I saw because I took time," Diane said simply. "In our rush to solve problems, we sometimes forget to truly observe. Your daughter was crying out for help in the only way she knew how. She just needed someone to hear her." Robert thought about all the money he'd spent, all the experts consulted, when what Emma had needed most was someone willing to look with both expertise and compassion. "I'd like you to stay," he said. "Not just as a nanny, but as part of our family." "If you're willing." Diane smiled. "I'd be honored." That weekend, they visited the bookstore as Diane had promised months ago. Emma moved through the aisles with confidence now, selecting books, discussing stories, being herself again. Watching his daughter laugh at something Diane said, Robert understood a profound truth. Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't measured in money or status, but in finding people who genuinely care, who see us not as problems to solve, but as individuals worthy of patience, attention, and kindness. Emma had suffered silently, too ashamed to ask for help, while the adults around her looked but didn't truly see. It took someone willing to go deeper, to examine not just symptoms but causes, to approach a struggling child with gentleness rather than judgment. As they left the bookstore, Emma's bag full of new adventures to read, Robert felt grateful beyond measure. His daughter had been given back to him, not through expensive treatments or prestigious doctors, but through the simple, powerful act of someone caring enough to really look. And in learning that lesson through his daughter's struggle, Robert himself had been changed, reminded that in our efficiency-driven world, We must never forget the irreplaceable value of patient attention, compassionate observation, and the quiet courage it takes to truly see another person's pain.